Affinity 3 comes with a new filter called Bloom. Now I'm just going to read the actual comment what it says when you ask what is the Bloom filter. This is a filter effect in Affinity 3 that creates a soft glowing highlight around bright areas of an image, simulating the look of a vintage lens or cinematic photography. And it's got a number of features. It's got here a method, bloom threshold, bloom factor, etc. This feature, this ask feature, is super useful. You can find it help and ask Ritson. It's an AI help. Okay, you can see the actual effect here as well. I've applied it to an image. So just undo to go back to the original image. And I've got a number of images in this that I'm going to show you the bloom filter effect applied to. Now, bloom is applied as a filter, but it can also be applied as a live filter layer. So let's just go through this. So I've got this image, and what I can do, I can go to Pixel, Filters, and then down here to Blur and Bloom. So Bloom, that's it. It's a new one. So click that. And with that, you can see it creates a slight bloom with this image. Now, of course, different images, the results will be different. Some will be better than others. But you'll notice it's got here a shadow blend, and you can increase that. And you can see as I change that, that just changes slightly, blends slightly differently. Also mid-tone, you can see the mid-tone there. And also if I put all those down, let's put them all the way down, you can see the highlight, just obviously this area, highlights blend. You can increase that like that, and you create a nice bloom effect. That's with this image, and I've got a number of images that I will go through. You've also got methods here. So you've got contrast, so you get a slightly off-color, weird-looking effect with contrast. And also you can modify the strong here, and you can see it creates a subtle change with the strong setting. Personally, I don't know why they didn't go with the method with a bright, strong, etc. instead of just down here. It just seems odd, since this seems to have quite an effect. It would have been nice to have had it in the method. Maybe it isn't the method. And then of course you can apply it. However, should be noted that the settings here, shadow blend, mid-tone blend, etc. in their ask and help, it does seem to suggest that there's a bloom threshold and bloom factor and bloom color. Well, there's a color, and I don't know where the threshold is, but there's obviously the bloom factor. Maybe are these, I don't know. But it's just odd that that's not exactly matching. So click apply, and you can see it's applied. Now, one thing I always like to do in Affinity 3 is repeat it, because you might apply it once and you think, well, it's okay, it's creating an interesting effect. And that was at the maximum, at 100%. I don't know why the filter doesn't extend to 400%, because what you have to do, if you want to apply it again, you need to go to the repeat option. And where is that? Well, it's just up here in Pixel, and I'm using the Pixel Studio here, but it's just a menu. You'll see that in the vector as well, etc. Filters, and you've got this option, repeat bloom. So you can apply it again, and you can see then it becomes even more extreme yellow. Not looking good, that actually, unfortunately. But you can see filters, again, repeat bloom. But it's not a shortcut available straight away for that. You can, of course, set up a shortcut. But you can see it creates this very slightly unusual yellow effect. Now, if I undo that, and let's just go back to Pixel, Filters, Blur, and again, Bloom, and I can set it to not contrast. Personally, the bright one seems to be a better option. You can see you've got that slightly blurring effect, and that's what it says, the blurring effect that it will create. Soft glow as it puts it. Click apply, and then go to layer. Oh, I always go to layer, I don't know why. Filter, then go to blur, and again, boom, or go with the repeat again. You can obviously change the settings if you want. And now you've got this repeated, and it's a bit more of a high impact bloom effect. I think it's really obvious that you can see that blurring sort of, and it's still got a sort of orange yellow look to it. Okay, let's just undo. And let's go to another picture now. Let's just go to this one. So you've got this one. You've got a bit of a glow already around here. So let's go again to Pixel and Filters. And I could use repeat, perfectly reasonable. I'm just going to go to Blur and Bloom, because I want to go through the settings. And you can see as I change them, you'll see different things. So let's just go to Contrast. Again, just subtle changes, I think. Again, the strong, if you turn that off, You can see there, mid-tone, it's very subtle change, just occasional bit of change there. And again, highlight, you can reduce that down. And again, that's very subtle. Hardly anything actually, hardly any impact at all. And colour you can reduce down. So you might want to change the colour. Maybe that doesn't help with the previous image with that really intense colour change. So you could reduce that down and you can manipulate it and you can go for bright. Now bright has a instant more high impact effect. And again, strong, if you turn that off, you can see definitely the strong really adds a bit more sort of that bloom effect to it, which again, you may want to turn off because it's perhaps too strong. It's not always the best thing. Have it completely, just let's go for the max. And you can see then you can turn that again down and again there you can turn that down or shadow. And you can see as you do that, you can see it quite nice vignette effect. It's got the vignette sort of thing as it changes that. Okay, click apply. And I'm just going to, let's push this up and maybe this one and click apply. Because another thing, of course, with all these filters is you can apply, obviously the repeat, but you can also go hit the same thing, filters there. So unfortunately now, because there's another layer of the menu structure, you have to go filters here to this section here, which is fade. The fade is a great little option, I think. Now, vaguely remember that was somewhere else before, but they've now put it into filters, which I think is probably more sensible. So fade bloom, and now go here and you can fade this. Now, I wonder if that means that the fade, this fade used to be able to fade lots of other things. So I wonder if the fade is still available for the other things as well. But that's a slight different story. Okay, so we can see you can fade it. But you've also got blend modes, and you've got here, you can run through, and if you want to, actually things like this creates an interesting effect, the hard mix. And you can see then as you change that, you get this weird sort of unusual image around here. Or go with, of course, the other ones, negation and so on. So you can create a variety of different effects just by going, say, with different ones and changing the fade, maybe going down like that and clicking apply. And of course, you can always repeat it after that. You have to always go to filters again and repeat. And you can see then you get this slight now orange coming. It does seem to have a tendency to push the orange effect. Pixel, filters, and again, repeat bloom, and so on. So you can create some slightly very stylized sort of image effects using this approach. So let's actually just remove this now. I don't need this anymore. Well, you can apply this obviously and undo. I'm just going to undo now and go back to the original image. Now it's not particularly great for anything particularly highlight. Let's just go for something like this. Obviously, picture of London, Big Ben, obviously probably New Year's Eve, I guess. And let's apply the bloom effect to this one. But instead, you can use, instead of a destructive effect, because this is obviously a destructive effect I've been applying, I'm going to go for the live filter layer. And the great thing about this is you can get rid of it, you can apply it, and then you can remove it. So where's the live filter layer? Well, you can go here. Got this layer selected, you can go to Pixel, and you can go down here to New Live Filter Layer, and you've got blur and you've got bloom. Exactly the same functionality as well. So bloom, select that. And straight away you can see there's a bit of a bloom effect straight away. Obviously got contrast there. Let's just shadow bloom. You can see as I change that, just subtle changes obviously down here. Let's just reduce that mid-tone, and you can see there it just gain very subtle changes. And also highlight blend, you can see subtle changes again. And just around here, obviously the brighter bits. And you can also modify the colour. Again, you've got lots of orange here. It's going to probably result in a bit of orange here, I think. So again, bright. This one is better if you want a sort of really sort of bloom effect applied here. And again, you can change that. And you can see now, obviously these slightly darker parts, you can see it bloom there. And also highlight. Let's push this down. So it's hardly having that much impact on these ones. And strong, again, it just brings in a slightly stronger effect. Again, slightly baffled by this. I don't know why they didn't do it in a slightly different way. But anyway, I never particularly like a checkbox like that. Very strange. But you can see it does have an effect. I can reduce that down. put the highlight. I want that one actually. Slider down and slider. They only go up to 100%, so it's between 0 and 100%. But also, you can see you can modify this. Again, the colour. Again, very subtle changes there. But again, you've got the blend mode, so you can run through. And I think that looks quite nice. You can just go through colour dodge. And you can see colour dodge recreates quite an interesting effect. And again, let's just go mid-tone there. And you can see really high impact when you use the colour dodge. So you might want to try different blend modes if you want really extreme effects. And again, contrast, you can go back to that. Bright. Again, obviously, it's in the eye of the beholder. I'm certain that photographers going to this will look at it a completely different way than I'm looking at it. I look at it more for the visual effects, more creative, combine it with pattern designs and much more than obviously the photography side of things. But everyone will have different perspective of that bloom filter. I'm certain it's going to be super useful. Please put in the comments below if you found this useful or perhaps not. I mean, it would be really nice to know if the particular filter is going to be serving a purpose for you. Well, let's just now go to another thing, but because one thing here, again, one thing I quite often like to do, especially when you've got a filter that seems to only go up to 100%. I'm not certain why the settings are so low. I think it would be nicer if it could extend. And a great way of doing that is to apply it again. And you can always go to the layers panel and you can select that and you can then duplicate it. And you can see then you get real bloom. It's using colour dodge, so you might want to change that to normal. And you can then again duplicate that and so on. So you can create a really intense, like it's really explosive sort of brightness of obviously that firework display that you would get, of course. The fireworks explode in the sky. You've got that blaze of light. You've created that bloom and that hazy effect that you would get around. And it does often look like that on fireworks night, on New Year's Eve, when you see it on TV in London. I think it just really sort of, whoo, when it goes on the screen. So you can see you can create multiple layers with that. Let's just remove that. And I'm going to go back to another image, because what you can also do is apply other effects and then the bloom. So before I go any further with this one and add bloom again, I'm going to go here to Pixel, Filters, Blur, and I could, of course, add other filters as well, perfectly reasonable, but I'm just going to go with Gaussian. So Gaussian Blur, I've got Gaussian there, and I'm just going to push it up to about 35. So it's quite blurred to start with. Click Apply. So you've got this blurry effect, and then I can just go over here again, Pixel, Filters, and this is again back to destructive effects. So you can just apply that. You could still do the same with the live filter layers if you want to use that. So now blur and go into bloom again. So now you can see you get a real nice bloom effect there. And again, you can modify this color. You maybe keep that really low and maybe shadow. Let's just push that. You can see the shadow there. It really does sort of change. Just push it up to 100. It just brightens it up a bit, only slightly, but brightens a bit. And mid-tone. And of course, in this video, I'm showing it to extremes. You could, of course, make it 10%, 20%. You don't have to go 100%. And highlight blend, and you can see then, again, you've got that impact there. And click Apply. And again, you can apply the filter again. You don't have to apply it just once. Filters, Pixel Filters, and repeat bloom. And you can see then you get this really high impact bloom effect on this part, the blurriness, all those things. Of course, you could maybe duplicate the layer and then you can combine it. So you could obviously have the original image, then duplicate it, then blur it, and then apply the bloom, etc. Or maybe blur the original image, then add a bloom to the duplicate. There's a number of combinations you could do to create some interesting variations of that bloom effect. And of course, you can see the result of that. Okay, let's just go now to the final image, a black and white image. So we've got black and white image. Let's apply the bloom filter to that. And I'm just going to go for the filter effect. So Pixel and go with Filters. And again, I could go repeat, but I can go to Blur and Bloom. So I can actually show the settings. And now you can see the settings. If I go through it, contrast, and you can see here mid-tone, very subtle. I mean, there's a subtle, you can see there as I change the shadow, and it's a lot of shadow here. So you can see that changing. Also, again, highlight, you got the highlights there, and it sort of just has a slight effect there. And colour, well, you can see colour doesn't have much of an impact there. And strong, you can change that. And you can see strong suddenly makes it a bit brighter again, and you got that. So let's just go with this, and I can go, let's go with bright. The bright, I think, makes it even more bright. Again, you might not want to do that. You can see strong. If you do that, you got quite a blur on that. It's one of those filters that you probably go from really nothing to extreme effect if you apply it a couple of times. So click apply. Then again, go to pixel, and again, filters, and you go to blur and bloom. And now you can really see that bloom effect. And again, you can see subtle changes. When you change that, you might get that like really sort of misty blue sort of blur effect, which I think is quite nice. Mid-tone, again, very subtle. And again, strong, you turn that off. Or maybe go with highlight blend, you push that down. And then colour, again, no effect whatsoever. Would be very surprising, wouldn't it? And again, strong, turn that off. Or contrast, got that, bright. And click apply. And of course, you could repeat it again, pixel, filters, repeat, bloom. And again, you could use fade. You could combine it in different ways with different filters and much, much more. Now, you can also, of course, apply this to vector designs as well, which does create an interesting image. So let's just go back here and let's undo these. Don't want that. So I've got this. You can then go to vector and down here, and you've got image trace. So image trace, and image trace, you can obviously vary the edge threshold, obviously bring more, you want the blue back in, or you can just keep it to the max. You can sort of near enough cut it out. Let's just push it up to there. So you've got obviously this here, all the blue is now gone. You of course could remove it beforehand. That would be reasonable as well. And you can also modify this if you want to. Very subtle changes. I must admit, when it 100%, so I'm certain if you analyze it, go down to a look at the vectors, there would be some difference. And click apply. So now you've got this, but you'll notice one thing here. If I go over here to the layers, all it's made up of is lots of curves. And if you go over here, and let's just go to pixel, filters, blur, bloom, you can apply it. If you've got that, now, sometimes you might find that it doesn't let you see that. It's not accessible, but you should be able to do it. But I generally would either go to use this in option, pixel and new live filter layer, blur and bloom there, than probably applying it this way. But say you've got this, you can then go, of course, pixel, filters, and blur and bloom. And now you can see you get this lovely, and it's luckily the assistant pops up and tells you that it's rasterized the layer for you, and it's done it properly. Noticed a few times where it just doesn't allow that to happen. So be aware of it. Suddenly, if you've got nothing, you might want to just go and rasterize it and then do the filter effect. But it should, it's got it here, it's done it. And you can see that bloom effect applied now to this vector design. And again, you can then obviously modify the color, give that sort of yellowy sort of orange tint, which may be not what you want. And let's see the red, it sort of makes the red a bit redder. I guess that's what the colour's really doing. But it does have a tendency to make this, maybe they should have split that up as well. Maybe they could have done some sort of flesh colour, you know, and these sort of colours. Maybe the red or green, etc. And then that would have been probably a bit easier as well. But it does unfortunately make faces go very orange, which is perhaps not really what you want. Okay, you got that and strong again. You can see the effect of strong, turn that and click apply. And you've applied your effect. Well, exactly the same before. You can go to pixel, filters, repeat bloom, and then you can see now it's getting obviously a bit more orangey there, which is maybe not what we want, but you've got this lovely red and you've got this lovely sort of bloom effect applied to this shape. And of course you could combine this, make this design, hold it, alter option. You've got a lovely sort of nice blurry effect. I think that creates a nice sort of, I don't know, whatever, Christmassy halo under light sort of thing, glowing effect. There's all those sort of possibilities you can see you could do with that. And let's just reduce it back to that original image. So that is a run through of the bloom. Now I guess, and I haven't done it yet, you can also use the bloom with channels. So let's just go with channels next with the bloom filter. And I find the channels, probably one of the most powerful features in Affinity. Perhaps never actually used that much, but I really think they're great. So where can you find the channels panel? Now, it's not in general, which perhaps for me would be nice. I don't know why it isn't in the general, but they decided to tuck it away in the pixels and channels. I guess since vectors probably don't have channels. So I guess there's a reason, but it's a pity that it's there. So channels, unfortunately, you can't move them around. I would love to be able to rearrange that just to have my set of menu panels that I like to access. I think there is a feature to actually set up panels in a particular way, but that's not for this video. So you've got channels, and you can see then you've got channels. You've also got some other things brought in as well, which I don't want, but you've got channels here, and you see you've got composite red, composite green, etc. And what you can do, if you want, you can just go here and select. And now, pretty ugly looking there, but still, what you've got composite red. That's the only thing, the red channel that's being used. So you can go here, pixel, and let's just see. It might be possible it doesn't work. So it's always good that it does. Filters, again, blur, and again, bloom. So bloom, and you can see the effect bright. I'm just going to go with this bright sort of effect, and you can see then it creates an interesting bloom effect there, but that's in the red channel. What you can do then, composite green, you can select that one. And with that, you can go pixel, and you go down here to filters and blur, and again bloom. This time, the effect is not so extreme. You really hardly notice that. You can see it's a bit, the shadow's still changing there. So let's just reduce that down. Of course, there's not much green in it. There's a lot of red. So I guess the red is going to have more of an impact. And you can see highlight, you can reduce that down, and you can change it maybe strong. Let's just put that and click apply. So you can see you can apply that. Then what you need to do, just go here, click here, and now you've gone back, you've got the bloom effect. But the bloom effect has been only applied subtly to the red of the image, not the green and blue. Obviously, here's a lot of blue. That hasn't been touched at all because the blue is composite blue. I didn't apply the effect to it. So you can use the red, green, and blue to just create variations of this effect. So it's not applied to all the channels. And I think channels are really powerful. Great feature for creating some interesting visual effects with this. Affinity 3 also comes with some other filters. So bloom can be used with the new filters as well. Really great, powerful one, glitch filter. Now, I'm not going to do it with all the glitch features because there's a lot of them. So you could spend hours doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over here, and I've got pixel, filters, and again, I could use the non-destructive effects, the layer effects, live layers, I should say. But I'm just going to go down here, distort and glitch. And you can see then you've got here aberration, like this one, glitch strength, and you can see it creates a very weird, and you can also go bi-directional, which I think creates even a more interesting effect. You can create a real sort of, if only they had a time-lapse feature in Affinity 3. Keep saying Affinity Photo. Affinity 3. So you could have this and you could save it. That would be brilliant. But okay, got the visual effects. You can also remove it around, which creates a very disorientating effect. But click apply. Now you've got this, which you can then use with, again, pixel, filters. And again, I would love to see additional multiple filters available in this menu, not just the one. Pity they haven't gone to extend it to 5 or 6 like you can in Photoshop. Okay, so you've got blur and again bloom. Now you can see you get this effect. So again, you've got a shadow. You can see then you've got this very unusual, you've got mid-tone, and you can create lovely glowing blur there, highlight, or maybe go the other way. And colour, you can reduce that down if you want. Personally, full on with the colour. If you're going to go for this, you might as well go full colour and strong. And you can see then it creates a very nice sort of glowing green, obviously in this case. And click apply. Exactly the same as before. Pixel, go to filters, and then again, repeat bloom. Or fade it, use blend modes, but repeat bloom. And now you can see you get this very odd effect. But again, you could, of course, just have this initially. Go to pixel, filter, blur, and a bit of Gaussian. That's not full on. I don't want to go that much, but say about 18 or 20, so it's blurry. You You've got some lovely there for options for there. Pixel, filters, and again, blur and bloom. And now you can see you get this really lovely bloom effect. Again, you can modify that. You can see the shadows changing there, or mid-tone, just change that. And again, highlight, you can just see that especially there. And click apply. And again, pixel, filters, repeat bloom to create a real, quite intense, sort of unusual vintage photography. Though I must admit, if I got this photo, it would probably have a sticker on it, because we used to have stickers where they would say, this picture is, what's the name? It'd normally be right over the top of the picture, and you think, well, no, I like that picture because it's really weird and surreal, because it's created a nice, unusual effect. But that's just me. Anyway, that is a run through of some of the possible things you can do with bloom. I am certain you could use the bloom with things like brush strokes as well. Maybe use it with patterns and many other features that you can find within Affinity 3. Have you used the bloom filter? Are you going to be using the bloom filter? Do you think it's a very powerful feature of Affinity 3? Please let me know in the comments below. Always great to hear from you.